Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about what to do if your sales are slow or you feel like they're slow, and just how to know whether that's quote unquote normal or not, because sometimes it is normal to have slow sales. People tend to have different patterns throughout the year depending on what you're selling, and sometimes there are just times of the year that are normally slower than others. Other times there's other stuff going on and you really kind of need to pay attention to that. So how do you know whether your sales on Etsy are slow and whether that's normal or whether it's something you need to pay attention to? Okay, the first thing you should do before you panic is to go and look at your own stats. Now, if you're brand new on Etsy, you're not going to have this to look back on, but if you've been on Etsy for any length of time, you can kind of look back year over year to see if there are patterns that you're seeing in your stats. And for me, I always see a dip in November and December, then it goes back up in January and it starts going up until the summer, and then it starts going down again because I sell to wedding season. So I don't sell during the winter as much as other people do. Other people are going to see different patterns. So whenever I start getting nervous because I feel like my shop is slow, I go back and remind myself that this is a normal slowdown at this time of year for me. So just do a reality check, go back and make sure that your sales patterns are normal. And if they're not, then that might be something to look into. But if you're seeing normal slowdowns, then that's probably fine. You're also going to want to look at your Etsy stats to see if you have traffic changes. So if you were having a lot of traffic from social media and now that's slowing down, or you had a lot of traffic from search and that's slowing down, and the app traffic right above that is not picking up, because those both include search traffic. Etsy app and other Etsy pages or something, and then Etsy search, those both include search traffic. So as long as they're kind of balancing each other out, that's okay. But if you see big drops in both, that's something to keep an eye on, and you might want to watch for a week to see if it's just a stats reporting error or if it really does look like your traffic is really dropping. You can compare those stats with your traffic stats, and if you see that a lot of traffic is dropping, then you need to kind of investigate that to see what's going on. But if it doesn't look like your traffic really is dropping, it could just be an Etsy stats reporting error, which do happen pretty frequently. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. You also want to look at Etsy technical stuff, like go to the Etsy forums in the technical issues section, because sometimes people report that they are having specific technical issues, and that could explain what's going on with your shop. But if you're not seeing any patterns of a lot of people reporting something going on, then it might be something else. But you just want to eliminate that as a possibility. And honestly, Etsy has a lot of technical issues, but just go check the technical issues forum, because that is a place where people post about technical problems that are happening right now on Etsy, and that could be affecting your sales. You also want to think about external factors. So that could be seasonality. Is what you're selling more appropriate for a specific time of the year than other times when people aren't going to be buying it as much? If that's not the case, then is inflation high? You know, are people not spending as much right now because it's a holiday? And I always have dips on the days that are holidays. That's normal. But you have to look at your own seasonality for your own shop. See if it's something external, and it could be that everyone in the world is involved in some big news event, and so people aren't shopping as much. Usually sales slow down during the summer when people are outside more and they're not inside on their computers as much shopping. So, you know, there are other external factors that could be happening that could be totally normal. So if you can identify some of those, then maybe that's what's going on. You also need to think about whether Etsy has done any search algorithm changes, and they do these every single day. They change the search algorithm all the time, and sometimes it's going to benefit your shop and sometimes it's not. So you need to kind of really look at what's going on that way, and come over, join my Facebook group, because we talk about this kind of stuff. But if you have a question about search algorithm changes, feel free to post them here, because we're pretty attuned. I can tell when they've changed something, basically. So if the algorithm has changed, that might be affecting your shop. That's normal, but you might have to change in order to adapt. And that's the kind of thing you have to be honest with yourself about. The other thing you have to be honest with yourself is your own products. And this is really hard to do because we're right there on top of our own products. It's hard to get away and be objective. But sometimes you're selling something that's really not popular anymore. And I've seen a lot of people who are complaining about something, like their sales are really slow and they don't know what's going on. And you go and look and they're selling something that was really trendy for about 3 months. And all of a sudden it's not trendy anymore. And that's normal. Trends have a natural upslope and a downslope. And if you're selling something that's super, super trendy 3 months ago and it's not as much anymore, your sales are naturally going to slow down. So you need to be aware of that kind of thing and be honest with yourself about it. The other thing that you need to look at as far as your own listings is to go in and look at your competition. And your competition sometimes is undercutting you, or the competition has just grown and there's more people competing for the same sales. In some categories, like jewelry, it's always going to be the competition. But you know, that's the kind of thing where if you're in a really competitive niche anyway, that is probably part of it all the time why you're having slow sales. But if it's gotten bigger, if you notice that there's a lot more competition, and if you go into Marmalade, if you have Marmalade, they have a rating score, like they have a little chart that shows how many people are selling that thing. And if you see that it's an upward trajectory, then that could be why your sales are slowing down. There's more supply than there is demand, because just because more people start selling something, it doesn't mean there's more demand for that thing. It just means that more people are supplying it. If you understand supply and demand, that means that everybody's going to have a smaller piece of the pie. So that could be why your sales are slowing down. And if that's the case, you need to decide whether you want to add more products in a different kind of category, or if you want to drop your prices a little bit, which I would not advocate for unless you're doing it in a very specific way. And I did another video about that I will link to in the description of this one, because sometimes that can make you have more profit if you drop your prices and add shipping back in, but it's a calculated thing that you have to do and think about for your own shop. But just take some time to go look at search results to see what they look like, because if you notice a lot of shops that you've never seen before selling the same thing that you are, it could be that the competition has just grown a lot, or that you have undercutters. Look at the pricing. So there's all kinds of things that it could be to see whether it's normal. Some things you don't need to do anything about. Sometimes, like seasonality, it's just slow right now and it's going to pick up in a normal way. Other things like competition and undercutting and that kind of thing, you probably should be paying attention to. So depending on whether something is normal that you can just kind of let it ride, or whether you need to take action, that's what you really need to take an honest look at and make some changes if you do feel like you need to. So leave me any questions and I will talk to you later.